Hey everyone, Tanner here, and I'm back with another terrarium build. In this one, I'll be making something that I doubt has been made before, and that has surprisingly only been requested twice. First by Jonathan, and then by Charlie. Charlie said he thought this would be a challenge, but let me just say that was quite an understatement. I've built a ton of terrariums on this channel, and this one definitely put all of those to shame in terms of difficulty. It's not so much that it was a challenge, but that it's so impractical that it's almost impossible to pull off. Needless to say, I made it happen, and that's what we'll be making here. Let's get started. First things first, we need a Klein bottle. I'm not going to do this justice, but in short, a Klein bottle is a single-sided object with no edges. However, physical representations such as this glass bottle are actually flawed 3D representations of a 4D object, if I understand correctly. The Klein bottle is a pretty interesting concept and worth looking into if you want to learn more about it. Also, I'll leave a link to where I got mine down in the video description in case you want to get one. Now that we've got our Klein bottle, let's transform it into a terrarium. Like most bottles, this one has one way in and one way out. The challenge, of course, is that the opening is on the bottom of the bottle, and that we have to somehow get all of the materials up through the tube that leads into the interior of the bottle. Although I put a lot of thought into how I wanted to do this build, I eventually threw all of that aside and decided that I was just going to wing it. As usual, we'll begin with our false bottom. Given the already difficult nature of this build, I'm going to simply make a sand false bottom using black sand with larger granules. This is one of the most important components of a successful terrarium, and there are a number of methods that you could use. I chose sand because it could be easily incorporated into this build. That said, I suppose I should loosely use the term easy because even this portion of the build was somewhat challenging. Once I got a good rhythm going though, I was able to quickly get enough sand in the container. If you want to learn more about terrarium false bottoms, I'll link a whole video of them up above. Next up is the substrate. As you would expect, I'm using my tropical substrate blend for this build. It's composed of various materials that when combined, create the perfect terrarium substrate. I should also mention that my charcoal is mixed into the substrate itself, so I will not be adding a dedicated charcoal layer. Now then, how am I going to get the substrate into the container? For this job, I've got a flexible grabber. At first, this seemed like the perfect solution, and it would have been if it were slightly smaller. Anyways, I had to make do and put the substrate into the bottle one claw grab at a time. As you could imagine, it took a really long time to pull this off. If I had to guess, it probably took anywhere from 2 to 3 hours just to get enough substrate into the bottle. From there, I picked up a cotton ball with the grabber to clear the tube of any debris. It did the job of course, but unfortunately the cotton ball fell into the bottle. This was really frustrating because it took me nearly a half hour to get out. I just kept grabbing it with a claw, but no matter what I did, I just couldn't seem to get a good enough grip. After finally getting it removed, I taped some cotton swabs onto a wire and used that to clean as much of the interior of the bottle as possible. Unfortunately, I was pretty limited with how well I could actually work in the bottle, so I couldn't clean everything. In fact, that was the thing that made this build so difficult. Sure, it's hard enough to get things into the bottle, but once they're in, it's even harder to place them with intent. Enough of that though, let's plant the terrarium. Originally I wanted to plant this with things like Anubias and Bucephalandra, but I quickly realized how limited I was. So instead I decided to use some badge moss and liverwort. Both look really nice, should be relatively easy to plant, and will require little to no maintenance. Hopefully that works out because once this is set up, there's no way I'll be able to perform maintenance on this terrarium. With my plants selected, they are broken up into manageable segments and then inserted into the opening with a wire. It wasn't too hard to get them into the container, but once they were in, it was really difficult to get them in locations that I liked. At the end of the day, I don't really like how they are planted, but they will carpet the entire terrarium anyways, so long term, it really doesn't matter where they are placed. Regardless, I did my best to at least get them in locations where I thought they would look decent. Now we'll go and hardscape this terrarium. First I'll be using some crushed up sandstone. To get these into the bottle, I used the flexible grabber from earlier and put them in a few at a time. Since I can't get a full blown scape in this setup, I basically just let the stones fall wherever and left it at that. Then I continued to hardscape the terrarium, but this time with little twigs and sticks. Again, I just let these fall where they may and left it at that. Long term, the plants will cover most of these items anyways, so it doesn't really matter where they are placed. To finalize the terrarium, I used my cotton swab wire contraption from earlier to clean out the opening of the jar. Here we are, the finalized Klein Bottle Terrarium. This thing was an absolute nightmare to construct and film, but it didn't turn out half bad. I've had this container since Christmas and wanted to do it much sooner, but I've been dragging my feet because of the logistics behind it. Like I said earlier in the video though, I decided that it was finally time to take action, so I winged it. Given the nature of this terrarium, I do think it turned out fairly well, and I'm curious to see how it will last long term. I can't say that my expectations are high, but at the same time, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work out. There are two things about the final product that I don't like though. I really did a number on the tube that's going into the container and now it's all scratched up. However, unless you really look, you're not going to notice it right away. There are also some spots and debris that I couldn't reach with my tools no matter how hard I tried. Luckily, they're not on the viewing side of the terrarium, so in most cases you're not going to see them anyways. At this time, I'm not adding any additional water to the container. I soaked the substrate and plants before putting them in the terrarium, so I think there's probably enough moisture already. If not, I'll simply add some down the road. Also, I obtained the plants from outside, so springtails will likely show up on their own. I'm not going to go out of my way to get them in the terrarium though, so if they don't show up, then they don't show up. Lastly, I put a cork into the bottom of the container. That's all I got for you in this one. This build was extremely challenging, but I'm always up for the challenge and I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this terrarium build, be sure to stay tuned for the rest of 2019 and beyond. Trust me, I'm just getting started and I have a ton of crazy projects on the drawing board. As always, I thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoy content like this and want to learn more about creating naturalistic enclosures, be sure to subscribe and join the Serpa squad if you're not already. Also, if you like this project, please take a moment and give the video a thumbs up and let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. Both really go a long way in supporting this channel and are greatly appreciated by yours truly. On that, thanks again for watching and I'll see you next week. Same place, same day, and probably around the same time. Take care and peace.